it was just beautiful powder and jagged peaks. And I remember sitting there in my mind, I was like, I need to be out there. Like, that's what I need to be doing. And it's not always easy. That's why you got to continually be checking in and working on yourself on an intrinsic level. We have that opportunity to for so long. Well, only so long. We have our lifespan, and you never know how long it's going to be for each person. So capitalize on it.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Athletic Stance podcast. On this episode, we have a very special individual, someone that I have had the privilege of skiing with, and this conversation really meant a lot to me. We broke it up into 3 parts, and we talked about overlapping subjects through each of them, but I thought that it was best to break it up into 3 parts. First, let's introduce Amy. Amy is a professional skier and outdoor adventure athlete. During the summer months, she guides wilderness backpacking trips for Sawtooth Mountain Guides and is a retreat director and lead guide for And She's Dope Too, a worldwide women's collective. She is the owner and founder of Action Inspired Productions, curating multimedia content as the writer, producer, and on-camera talent, telling inspiring stories, connecting people and the planet. Her work has been featured on Outside TV, Discovery Channel, TetonGravity.com, Outside Magazine, Universal Sports TV, and many other reputable sources. She grew up in rural Pinedale, Wyoming, in the foothills of the Wind River Range, where her passion for outdoor adventure was innate. We talk about this in the podcast. Skiing has fueled her Wild West thirst for adrenaline and passion for Mother Nature. She has been skiing for 26 years and currently travels the world skiing in front of the camera and utilizing her snowmobile to pursue remote backcountry adventures. Amy is one of the youngest researchers to present at the International Snow Science Workshop, with original science research on glacial recession and particulate matter. Go check out that peer-reviewed published paper. Just got to go to her website and go to her About Me, which is what I'm reading right now. In 2009, Amy won the title Miss Wyoming Teen USA, which kickstarted her media career, combining aspirations in the outdoor and entertainment industries. She formerly worked in public relations at Mountain Sports International, MSI, as we call it in the episode, for outdoor action sports events and as the on-camera field announcer for the Free Skiing World Tour. In 2015, she transitioned to competing as a pro skier on the Free Skiing World Tour and placed 3rd in her first competition in Verbier, Switzerland. With a BA in Psychology of Communication and a minor in the Outdoor Education and Leadership from Westminster College, Amy has applied her degree beyond skiing to produce inspiring content for companies in the outdoor industry, in addition to hosting women's clinics and guiding wilderness trips. How does she do it all? She is an amazing athlete. I absolutely loved this conversation with her. I hope that we get to do more together. For this first episode, we talk a lot about a lot of the things that I just mentioned, like her backstory, health, entrepreneurialism, and how she has not only turned skiing into a passion that she gets to pursue, but also a business of telling stories and communicating and combining her whole life experience into a body of work. So without further ado, let's jump right into this podcast episode with Amy Jane David.
So my favorite book, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I love philosophy books.
Me too. I went to school for philosophy and then dropped out and chased the Free Skiing World Tour because that was better. But
super successful, didn't go to college. Like, what is success?
Right.
But he talks about how like joy and sadness or pain and sorrow with your happiness and joy is like a glass of wine. I love wine. So the deeper your glass, the more it's been carved out, the more you can then fill it with your wine or your happiness. So I've
Yeah.
I've had friends, or myself, it's more of myself that I'm talking about. But like the greater your sadness or your sorrow is, like, means the amount that you loved. So,
Yeah.
yeah. For me, I was with Hef.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of pain that I have felt when he passed away is like equivalent to the love. So,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's, I talked about it with Angel a little bit, and I'd love if you could just, in whatever way you want to, explain kind of the feelings and emotions and what you went through at some of those really hard times and how you dealt with it and the process and everything. But one of the things that Angel and I talked about is, like, oftentimes having lost a lot of friends and having, witnessed a girl that I had a crush on get hit by a snowmobile at the age of 13. And I was, like, planning on telling her that day that I had a crush on her, and then she was gone. And I never had that. I never was able to, like, express to her how I felt. And for the longest time, I felt so robbed. I felt so robbed when Jordan passed away. I was supposed to go out 2 weeks after and learn how to speed fly from him. And I was, like, so angry and bitter at life for a little bit, because anger is my emotion that I go to for whatever reason. It's easier for me to feel angry than it is for me to feel sad, which is something that I'm working on a lot. But I was angry and I felt deserving of those people's time or deserving of those experiences. And one of the things that I really had to settle in on is, like, I'm grateful that I had got to spend that time with those people. I'm grateful I got to experience who they were at any level. No matter what happened in the situation, I was blessed with their consciousness, with their existence. And just that fact is that I was blessed with their existence. I'm grateful for it. And when you are in gratitude, you can't feel that anger. You can't feel that hate, that, like, so yeah. I'd love to have you talk about what you feel comfortable with in the situations where with Hef and the injuries, and talk about how you metabolized that emotion and the, you're talking to me about the experience this summer of being able to use it to the experiences that you had been through to help others. So kind of just that.
Okay. Yeah. You might have to keep asking me some questions, because I haven't, I've talked about this to a lot of people. Like, it's a common thing that I think about every day, and I've talked about in the retreats that I run, which are more small, intimate groups. So I haven't publicly, like, I guess, shared super. Anyways, sorry, that was ramble. My heart's beating fast because I hear about it a lot. But I liked what you said. We got to experience their consciousness, where when Hef passed away, I thought of a quote by Albert Einstein, which is, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but transfers.
It only changes forms.
Yes, it only changes forms. That's it. So I do like to think of that, and in moments like that's comforting when you have a close person to you pass away, is that, like, okay, like, their energy is still here, like their soul or their spirit is alive in whatever you may believe, whatever capacity that may mean. But then it's frustrating because they loved life so much, and having that consciousness of, being in a human body and getting to experience life that way is so remarkable. And for some reason, a lot of the young people that a lot of us, and, in the ski industry, have been friends with and have looked up to, like they love life and they were kind people and they were fun and they were just good at life, and they got cut short. And so that's where I get frustrated for them, where I still don't think it's fair, no matter how you like try and rephrase or reframe, like, okay, like things happen for reasons. Like, no, that doesn't happen for a reason. Like, that's not fair. So I guess prefacing with that. But yes, for people that are listening, I could tell a little bit about the story to give some context of what I'm talking about. But Hef, so Matt Heffernan, a lot of people know him in the ski industry. Heffy, he was known for his cork 7 blunts, 6 ski moves, but mostly known for his fun-loving personality. He was a wild man, just always having a good time, like super outgoing. And I remember one thing that I heard somebody say was like, Hef didn't have any acquaintances. You were either like one of his really good friends or you didn't know him. Because if you ever met him, you felt like you were just best friends with him all of a sudden. Like he was just that type of person, just super, super awesome. And I met Hef when we were skiing at Snowbird. Somehow it's weird how everything's somehow super connected. So I was with my coworkers of MSI at the time when I was working on the free ride tour, and they were friends with Hef. And so we were all meeting up and skiing down Great Scott, and I was kind of like a little smartass and came up, saw him on the side of the run and like sprayed him with snow, like head to toe covered him. And he wipes his goggles off and looks at me. He's like, damn girl, I like the way you ski. And I just looked at him and just straight lined down the mountain away. I was like, okay, get out of here now. And he followed me. And then ever since then, we were pretty much inseparable. I think our first like official date was Easter morning, where I'd seen him at a party the night before. And I was like, I'm going to sunrise service on top of Snowbird for Easter. And then he messaged me at 5 a.m. He's like, so we're still going to the sunrise service, right? It's like, oh shit, like now I have to go. So yeah, so it was just fun. Like we were on a high. He was just, yeah, he cliff jumping at Causey Reservoir. And I was not with him at the time. I was working, and I didn't hear from him one night. But yeah, so he was cliff jumping and never came back up out of the water. And so that experience was super heavy. I ended up going to Causey and just jumping in and floating in the water, just wanting to feel, I don't know, when things like that happen in your life, you don't even know what you're doing. You're just doing. And so I don't even know how to explain certain things that I felt I needed to do. But that was a moment when I didn't want to drink any alcohol. So I wanted to feel and remember everything. So I could remember everything that I smelled, felt, every moment of that whole experience.
What was the process of walking through that situation? Like the feelings that you felt were yours, and the memories are yours, but what was the process? Because for a lot of people it's like, at least for me, I like you sit in this place of duality where you want to feel the sadness and you want to honor that feeling and that, you know, that relationship and that just that love that you had for that person, but you also want to be able to function in life. You know, you want to be able to honor what they would have wanted for you as well. And there's a really healthy balance of being able to metabolize the emotions and be with the emotions and not letting it consume you and not letting it consume your own consciousness. so that you're not able to bring your light into the world?
No, that's super important. So dealing with having somebody that you love pass away is like insurmountable. The pain is insane. Like I had no idea that humans could feel that kind of pain and sadness before. And I always try and put it in perspective. I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of people in the world that go through this, and maybe even on a harder scale. Like you never know what people are going through, but it is part of life. It's life and death. But losing someone at such a young age is really hard to comprehend. We're like the weeks following Hef's death. My parents, well, the day of, like my parents drove up to Salt Lake and stayed with me. And I couldn't sleep. And I remember one day I woke up like 4 a.m. I was like, Mom, I need you to drive me to the top of Big Cottonwood Canyon, like 17 miles. Like, and then I'm going to get on my road bike and I'm going to ride it down and you're going to follow me in my car, please. So we went up for sunrise and we sat at Bloods Lake on Guardsman Pass. It's one of the places that we used to go together a lot. And the reason why I wanted to ride my bike down was me trying to be productive and create some endorphins and some serotonin and dopamine. I needed an adrenaline rush. And so that was my way of being like healthy in a way, of like trying to create like happy feelings. So I would ride my bike all the way down the road at like high speeds to get that, that good feeling inside. And that ended up being my mode of healing throughout the whole process, was finding ways to healthily help myself. It's hard to control your thoughts, and like it's okay to accept that sadness and to be mad and frustrated. And there were times I swear I cried in my apartment by myself for like full days at a time. Like it's uncontrollable. Like your body takes over. The emotions are insane that way. So I'm sure you had mentioned your experience sometimes with anger. It's like, and you're like, stop it. Like it's hard to stop it. You can't sometimes. And so, calling friends, my friend, Bo Torrey and I went and climbed the West Slabs. And that was another like strange moment that I had when I was halfway up. If for people that don't know what the West Slabs are, that's on Mount Olympus, and you can climb it without a rope. But like if you're not a climber, it's probably smart to have a rope. But so it's dangerous. Like if you fall, like you fall all the way down. And I remember looking down. I don't know if I've really told many people this, but I remember looking down and being like, whatever, like Hef's okay. He's not here. I guess I could go too. And I wasn't suicidal, but I remember going through those thoughts in my mind where I didn't want to die. Like I love life. I wanted to be around. But I remember trying to reason through like what his experience was like, but you can't. And so the hardest part with death is for all the people that are still here on earth. It's like we're the ones in pain, suffering. But it's still not fair that other person didn't get to finish their life when they have so much left to give to the world. And so going through and reasoning and being like, okay, like own up, like you need to do something about it, like contribute to the world, like make a difference. You're here. Enjoy your life. Yeah, have fun, like do it for you, but also do something bigger. Like you don't have to save the world. One of my favorite things I've always tried to think about is you can't create world peace, or you can't like help the world at large. Like who can? Like that's crazy. That's like unrealistic. But what you can do is you can make a difference in your own world, and you can be kind to the people you have influence over, and you can be supportive and motivating and do things that make a difference and contribute positively. So that's how I've tried to like go forward and keep a good mindset. Do you remember my mom? She was so great. She was with me the whole time, and I think it might have confused people. But why I did it, I wanted to go skydiving like the week after it happened. And we had gone skydiving together for the first time. So it was kind of like a connection thing. And I have this thing with birds, where I think that the energy or the spirits of people who have passed away, well, it's all of how you think of it. and we'll never truly know. So you get to choose what to believe, and that's what makes me feel better. So I like to think that half spirit is in birds and ravens in the mountains. When I was in France, they talked about the shukas, where the mountain people have passed away. Their spirit is in the birds. And so I always feel comfort when I see a bird in certain moments. And there's been some crazy moments where I'm like, you're talking to me. I know it. Like I'm sorry, going on a different direction. But at Alta one day, the light was absolutely beautiful. Like it was coming down, it was beaming, like last run. I'm one of those people that even if I'm alone, like I will get last chair. I'll just keep skiing until they tell me I can't go anymore. And so I think that's why Hef and I got along so well, because we're both just freaking crazy about skiing. Lots of people are, but
yeah.
Anyways, so I'm coming down like my favorite line, like by myself shredding, and there's this jump at the end, and then like kind of a ride, like swerve, like a wave, sort of like surfing, and this raven came down like 5 feet away from me, and I swear it looked me in the eye, like as I was going through the air, like what the heck? It was, I don't know, it was cool. But I try and see those moments as like comforting, to have a little moment of peace and connection. So you got to do what makes you feel happy or peaceful. Peace of mind is the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why I went skydiving was the adrenaline rush also, where I wanted to get that shot of, something pumping through the veins.
Feel alive.
Yeah. Self-medication, make you feel alive. And that's what Hef would have done, is like, I don't know if that's what he would have done in the same situation as say the tables were turned, but yeah, do something to make, like, help yourself out a little bit. They took pictures, and I know that it's a lens flare. When you take a picture and there's like light orbs around you,
yeah.
I know scientifically, like, yeah, that's like the light coming through on the lens. But I remember with a lady handing me the DVD after, and she's like, I don't know if you believe in this, but if you do, I just want you to know, like, there's crazy light orbs all around you. And she had known that I was doing that as like a tribute jump. So that was kind of cool.
Totally. I feel a lot of energy with birds too. Whenever I see birds, I think of Jordan, and I think of Tony Seibert, and I think of, Ashley Stamp, and I think of a lot of the people who I've been blessed to have in my life. And like when you're talking about being up on the slabs, when I taught myself how to speed flyer, I went and learned from Jordan's brother, Michael, and kind of taught myself as well. And one of the things that I felt a lot of the times when I was speed flying was like, I don't really care if this is my last flight. I don't really care if like something happens. And that's like it's a strange feeling. Like for a while there, it's funny because I felt that feeling before you talked about that. And then you talked about it, and I was like, oh, wow, like that is, it's an odd feeling to have, because it's not that you want to, but it's just like, you're like, okay with it. And, the ego should keep us from feeling that feeling, but, it doesn't. And it's one of those things where, don't really understand why you feel that way. But in those moments, you just like kind of have these, like, I don't know, you can't control those feelings, but yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. I've learned to like recognize those thoughts and then like restructure them in my mind, where I'm like, okay, so you had that thought. That's not realistic. Like that's not healthy, but you don't actually want to, you don't want to be just restructuring it so that you can accept those thoughts as they are, because they're valid. It's happening. You're having those feelings, and then, move forward in a positive direction. Yes. Touching on the birds, that does remind me of what I had told you about before, the story of how I've been trying to use these challenges that I've gone through to help other people. And so with these women's retreats that I do, the backpacking, it's 5 days in the wilderness. And one of them is in the Wind Rivers of Wyoming, where I grew up. And the trip this year really helped me like solidify like a sense of like purpose and value to what I've been bringing back to people, well, hopefully. And so it was very validating for me in a meaningful way. And so this girl, women can sign up, however, from anywhere. Like, we don't know who they are. And I don't know if she really knew my whole story. But on the first day, we go around and we say who we are, what motivated us to come on this trip together. And I always like to say that there's something inside of us that we never know what it is, but something pulled us all together to be in that moment. We don't know what it is, but something that each of us has is there to offer for somebody else. You may never know what it is that you give someone else, but it's there. And so one of the gals, she was super nervous, and she got it all out right away. She's like, I just need you guys to know that this is the 1-year anniversary to the death of my fiance. And he died in Afghanistan last year. And interesting enough, it was 3 years since Hef had passed away. Like, I just felt like my heart just like, I don't know, you just feel like this orb of energy. It's like, holy cow, like, this is intense. And I just, throughout that whole trip, it was amazing to see her. And she had chosen to be at that place, like with that group of people in that environment on her 1-year anniversary. So I felt like I had created something that is a safe place for women to go and to have these vulnerable emotions. And with the birds, so on the first day of hiking in, she was sitting kind of over by herself at lunch, and we, was checking in with her, but she was clearly needed some time for herself. And I look up, and there's this bald eagle flying straight down the meadow, like right at us. And it gets pretty close and just like flaps its wings and like hovers right above her. And I was like, look up the sky. And she looks up, and, it's a bald eagle, and he served in Afghanistan. And I started crying, and she started crying. We're like, oh my God. Like, because she's similar to me, where we see signs like that as, like, she took that as him giving her a sign that she's going to be okay. Yeah. And she's in a good place, and she's in the right place. And so just having moments like that are super meaningful with me, where I try and find that deeper sense of connection, and hopefully made a difference for her in her life. And I know there's other people that experience similar things, but that was super meaningful to me, where I always wonder, like, even in this interview, I'm like, oh, okay, like, how much should I share? Like, what's my motivation for sharing? And I always try and add value. Because it's important for people to know they're not alone. Yeah. When Hef died, interesting people started coming into my life, and I oddly, like, needed them. Not oddly, like, I clearly needed them. Like, I told you before that, in the same few months, Hef had passed away. And then a few months later, I lost my job, and then I couldn't afford my own apartment. So I had to move out, and I was feeling super lost. And it was like, those are all the things, if I were to think, like, all right, what are the shittiest things that could happen to someone in their life? I was like, oh, all right, so they're all happening right now. Great. And so my friend Christine, like, I didn't really know her before, like, you should come live with me. And she had gone through a similar experience. And then another friend came into my life, and he had recently lost his fiance, Liz Daly, like 2 years before. And he's like, if you ever need to talk to someone, talk to me. I'm here for you. I get it. And so I don't know, all these interesting people who were there to help me. And so I just want to be able to be that person for somebody else too. Yeah. But on a positive note, I've been able to try and see this as, I've seen different hints from Hef throughout my life in the last few years, where, like, he was one of the reasons I came to Idaho for various reasons. Him and Jeremy were friends. I'm dating Jeremy now, and introduced us to each other. And so we have this really special, deep connection. And Hef had given me a quartz crystal that he found in the mountains here in Idaho when they were on a trip together. And after he passed away, I found it because of course I lost it. And then I found it again a few days after, and I wore it as a necklace for several years. And I always thought like, I need to like go back to where we found this crystal. Like it's like this energy, because they have positive energies. Need to go back. And so somehow it's all been like interwoven, and I've been able to come back. Quartz, yeah, that's literally, I have so many of them. That's what I love so much about the Sawtooth Mountains, which is where I ski most of the time here in Idaho. They are just covered with quartz. Like there's certain places you'll be walking and it's just quartz all over the ground, and it's just like vibrating like positive energy. And so, I've been just trying to find like connection with people and places and find happiness. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the Sawtooths have a lot of spiritual energy. I got to go on a bike ride with Jordan's dad in a burn zone out there towards Redfish. So I got to watch the eclipse from Redfish with Jordan's brother. And then the year before, I got to go and bike in a burn zone with his dad. And there's like, I can still remember that bike ride so clearly. It was amazing. There's a lot of spiritual energy in the Sawtooths. They're so beautiful and so like, they're so like the Sawtooths, they're rough and they're like prominent and like great. Yeah, totally. And there's like, even though it's like such contrasted, jagged, like raw environment and like magical setting, it's very also like there's like a piece there for me as well. And that's amazing. I love that for sure.
I'm such a strong believer in like the universe and like putting your intentions out there. And that's why goals work. When you set them, like you put that out there and you're everything you do is aiming towards that. But I got to start working for Sawtooth Mountain Guides. And so spent most of my summer up in the Sawtooths, and it's just like rejuvenating to the soul. And I remember having my first clients that I got to do a private guided trip for. They were from somewhere on the East Coast. And I remember the woman saying that she's like, wow, like my soul feels like it's just been refreshed. It's like, yes, like that's perfect. Like that makes everything worthwhile, is when people can feel that. So in the business of soul soothing, I guess.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
I've been trying also lately to really focus on risk. So the year after Hef had passed away is when I didn't have a full-time job anymore. So I had some time. It's like, all right, I'm going to use this to do what I want to do. So I started competing, and I did well in Europe, was able to place 3rd and 5th in 2 different competitions over in Switzerland. So was able to come off with a lot of confidence coming into the US competitions, and things didn't quite go so well for me when I came back over here, where I was just aiming for like the biggest cliffs. And I would people would say like, if you want to do well, just ski fast. All right, well, I'm going to ski fast and hit big things. my mindset. And that was not the right strategy, where I wasn't in the right mindset either. I was very distracted. I was relying on outside forces to get me down instead of being super in the moment. So I crashed a lot. I didn't place because I didn't finish because I crashed. So I didn't do well. And then got to go on my very first film trip with Icelandic skis. So that was a moment of success for me. It snowed so much that the Denver airport closed. So my flight to my last competition after that film trip was delayed. So I got into Bozeman, Montana, for this free skiing world tour finals at 2 a.m. the night before the competition. So I only had visual inspection from the bottom. Luckily, some of my friends had skied the venue before and explained some of the features to me. So my plan was super safe, where I was like analyzing the risks. Like, okay, if I crash, do it below all of the cliffs, because there's cool zones on those venues. So luckily, I crushed the line, did really well, made it to finals the next day. But I was just tired. I was exhausted, legs sore from lots of different factors. factors. And I had my line picked out. I wanted to do a straight line through the equal chutes. And there were a lot of sharks on the venue. If you skied at Big Sky, there's like those sharp rocks that come up.
Oh yeah, that venue is so gnarly. I lived there for a year and a half because my first year of competition, I was so scared at the top of the headwaters that I was like, if I'm going to train somewhere, it's going to be here. So I ended up living there the whole next year on couches and in my car, just because it was wild. And yeah, there are lots of sharks there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that training there would be a good thing because then you know where they're all at. But I remember at the bottom, everyone was like, oh, that ridge traverse, like just walking across the ridge to get to the start gate. They're like, that's the scariest part. And I hadn't done it yet. And I was thinking in my head, like, chickens, like, it's no big deal. And then I get up there, I'm like, oh, I looked at my friend Katie and was like, if we fall, those rocks are going to rip our guts open. And she's like, don't say that right now. Like, well, it's true. So yeah, gnarly, sharp rocks. So I started on my run that finals day and was coming down, and I caught a few of those sharks under the snow, and it threw me off. And I just kind of hip checked and tumbled and got up and like, all right, well, I'm definitely not going to score well. Part of my, my brain was saying like, just ski down super mellow. Like it's, it's over. But then part of me is like, whatever, like, it doesn't matter if you place or not, just finish what you set out here to do, like finish your line. So I go and I ski up to the chute, and I remember feeling just exhausted, like kind of like limp noodle, like, oh, whatever. I remember being like, F it, and just went. And I know I'm competent of skiing that line. Like I totally could have done it. And I did straight lined through it, but it was hauling, like going so fast. And it was pretty chopped up in my outrun. I just had to ride it out, like hold on to the speed for a couple of big turns, and then it was over. But I hit this compression that was hidden in the outrun. It wasn't hidden. I know that I should have inspected better to know that was there and to prepare for that, but I didn't. So I was going fast, hit that compression, and it launched me like, I don't know how far, like 40, 50 yards down the mountain. And I hit a wall of those sharp rocks, a big cliff face. I hit with my hip first. I remember looking back and being like, oh shit. And then that was it. Just hip. And then I went and scorpion my face, and it's televised. So I have like the slow-mo footage of it, and it's pretty messed up to watch. You can hear the crowd shrieking, like screaming. Unfortunately, that was all my friends. They were pretty mad at me about that situation. But yeah, if you look at the close-up slow-mo, there's two rocks. There's one on each side of my face, and my face goes straight between them into one little pocket of snow that was on that section. And then just tomahawked down, and next thing I knew is getting put on a backboard with oxygen, just in so much pain, my whole body. Yeah, I mean, that was the most pain physically that I've ever felt, getting that toboggan ride down, just like rattling, and ended up having a broken pelvis in 2 places, ribs, bruised lung, strained neck. But I was super lucky, so everything was just shy of life-threatening. But each injury like could have been where like I have a hematoma on my femur, not a broken femur, and then broken pelvis, which that could be, you could bleed out from that if it fractures those arteries in there. Bruised lungs, not punctured lungs. Sprained cervical spine, not broken, which is cut. You're done for at that point. And then my face, my face just had one little scratch right on it. And so I walked out of the hospital. Well, I crutched out of the hospital and then got carried around by my friends for a while. My parents picked me up, and I don't know, I didn't think I thought a lot of it, like it hurt. I was sitting on the couch for a few months. I lost a few like big jobs that I had lined up because I couldn't ski. And so that was frustrating. But then I think the biggest lesson for me was hearing from all of my friends that were at the competition where they were not, like they were so upset and kind of scarred from that, because they were putting me into the ambulance, I look and my friends like Justin and Blake and Katie and Lisa were just standing there staring at me like white as a ghost with tears coming down their face. Like even months later, people would come up to me and were like, that was messed up. Like we thought we watched one of our best friends die. That's messed up. I'm like, guys, I didn't mean to. But that, I think hearing like how much it affected everyone else is what helped me realize once I started watching that footage again and watching my face go between the two rocks, where if I was an inch one way to the left or to the right, like I would have died. And or if I had, been going, 75 miles per hour instead of like 70 miles an hour. I don't know how fast I was going, but like that little bit more of an impact or velocity could have, broke my neck and I would have died. And knowing that I was that close to death was pretty messed up. It was definitely like a sobering moment.
Yep.
Not like alcohol sobering, but like, oh shit, like you gotta slow down and like think about what you're doing a little bit more. It's not just about getting on top of the podium by like hurling yourself down a mountain. It's like, I want to ski until I'm a grandma.
Yeah.
Like, I love life. And then thinking of how much pain and agony so many people have experienced when Matt died is like, I can't cause that for other people. Like, that's not fair. And so just taking like skiing and realizing like, we're always saying like, you're pushing, like this person's really pushing the sport, like they're going next level. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but why? But why are you putting your life and all of these people's emotional, well-being in jeopardy just, for what? Like, why do you need to do that to that next level? And it's hard for me. Like, I get it. Like, you want to push yourself and all that. But at the same time, like, skiing's fun. Like, let's keep it that way. That makes sense. Like, that idea of trying to balance, like, risk analysis. Like, what's your reward versus the risk? And is the reward really better? Like, is it really worth it?
Totally. Yeah, I was on a podcast yesterday and I talked a lot about the risk mitigation and having that conscious awareness of the possibilities of what could happen. And I had it's like you said, it's a sobering experience. It's like, it's sobering for your ego, and it teaches you humility. And I remember when I broke my back, I was being reckless. I launched off and I landed and I punched through the snow and bent my ski and tomahawked towards trees. And this is like super crazy because I remember riding up the chairlift beforehand and I got so caught up on like making an Instagram post that I didn't put my helmet on and it was in my backpack. I was like all caught up in this whole external validation thing of Instagram and whatever. I think I was trying to get a hold of my now ex-girlfriend, and then I like skied down and I did a backflip off this jump that I had hurt my shoulder on a couple of weeks before. I stomped the crap out of it and it gave me a ton of confidence. And so I cruised into this hit and I launch and I land and I bend my ski and I start tomahawking. And the only thing I can think of is not my head, not my head, not my head, because I knew I was just like naked on my head. And the trees parallel this jump and then they dog leg afterwards, so it closes out with trees at the bottom, and I just knew I was headed straight towards them. And I wrapped myself around this tree in my back in the lower spine, and I didn't realize until I was in the hospital later on, but my helmet was in my backpack where I hit the tree. And it's this crazy set of circumstances similar to like your face being in between two rocks. It's like, what the hell kind of divine intervention like just took me that close to life but spared me? That was the most humble I've ever been, sitting underneath that tree being like, wow, everything I've been doing is to get eyes pointed towards me, but I never had a purpose for why those eyes needed to be pointed towards me besides ego, besides it was going to make me feel better. And then in the last 2.5 years, I still am pushing to get people to see what I'm doing, but it's in this idea that my story, my experience, the things that I have been lucky enough to be consciously aware of can help other people.
And so telling those stories and being able to articulate that and risk mitigation is huge. And it's really humbling. And people, it's hard. I remember watching Ian Borgeson sent that massive channel gap, and then his homie tried the same channel gap and landed on the rocks. And I remember watching it. I have it on video. I have some crazy stuff on video because I always brought my video camera to the events. Yeah, it's one of those situations where like it's so painful to watch. And I remember even at like Castle Freeride, and there were some gnarly crashes at Big Sky Moonlight.
Yeah, Connery. I remember the year before he landed in the rocks.
Yeah, and like they are super sharpy. Chris Schaefer got a massive concussion on day one. Like there's so many people that I can think of, and it's crazy. You fall there and you're gonna fall for 1,000 feet, like at the top of the run. And yeah, no, I'm thankful that we're both still here given the things that have happened to us. I actually set off an avalanche. I was just talking about this at the top of that Looker's right hand face on Headwaters. I forget what it's called, but we beat the ski patrol out there, and it was a storm that wind loaded that top ridge. It was super foggy, and I had gotten drunk the night before and forgot my beacon, and like was skiing the Headwaters without my beacon. I'm like, oh, it's patrolled, like they've mitigated it, whatever. And freaking we passed them. And so I was still probably kind of not as conscious because of the drinking situation. And I was the first one to make turns on it. And I ski cut a couple times to try and get it to break off because I could tell it was wind loaded, and it seemed pretty fine. And then I make 2 turns, and my second turn, I break off a slab that was like, 1.5 feet deep and 150 feet, 200 feet wide. And the way it all happened, I like landed on a rock afterwards, and then it made me I basically did like a front flip back onto my feet, and I'm like looking around and I'm like, what in the heck just happened? And like there's so many experiences where I just feel, I don't know, so lucky that I'm honored to have the life that I have still, because holy crap, like there's so many opportunities that I could have been taken, or that things could have happened differently by just half a rotation, and that would have been my head into the tree, not my back. And like a little bit different situation, I would have gone with that avalanche, and I wasn't wearing a beacon. And
really scary. That's one of the things I liked how you were saying. What resonated me when you were talking about like you were searching for like a photo or like a way to get a cool photo for more eyes on you, or not you in particular. I know like a lot of us, like in the ski industry, if you're pursuing a professional skiing career, a lot of the time that's what it is like you have to put content out, and promote the companies that you're working with. That's part of the game. But always remembering, like I try and remind myself when I get in that type of heuristic too, is like, okay, what's the why? Like, why am I doing this? That's big for me. It's like, why? And also using your voice, like you were saying, like, why do I need these people to be like looking at me? Like, what's the point? Like building, maybe not you, I don't mean to be talking about you, but like building a person up, like say me, like my ego, like, oh sweet, like all these people are looking at my picture, like that must mean like I'm a really cool skier. But more of like the important reason behind it, but more of what I'm getting at in a roundabout way is to utilize your voice. So once you do maybe have people following you, if you are credible in the ski industry, even if you're just getting started, is being transparent. And like your avalanche situation is like sharing that with people, because then people can learn from your experience too, where, we've had some friends who have been in incidences and they're high profile skiers and they don't share that they triggered an avalanche. You got to say that like you get in these incidences too, because these upcoming kids that are looking up to you are then going to think that they're invincible when they go into the backcountry too. And that oh, well, this guy did it, so I can do it. So I guess just being like transparent as a role model. That's what happens is that the odds add up. But I don't know. There's one, just like one of my favorite trips I've ever done was just here in Idaho in the Lost River Range. It's super remote. So you have to drive like quite a few hours, and then you're on a 2-track for a long ways. And then there's like snowdrifts over the road in the springtime. So we like shovel them off and then drive farther, and you're camping out for a while. We have like the perfect snow conditions skiing Mount Church. It's one of my favorite lines I've ever skied. You hike in your, hiking boots for miles through the mud, and then you put your skins on, and sure you know the game, like those long, far off lines, and you're like, thank God, like the snow works.
Yeah.
Once you do it, you get your one line and then go back. So we did that, and then it started snowing. So we camped out for 2 days, just waiting out the snowstorm. And then, so that third day, the weather cleared and we decided to go in. And it's still like miles of trudging and then hiking and then climbing. And the line that we wanted to ski it's super sick. Like it's just so like geologically cool. Looks like chocolate cake, cliffs like smushed and then swirled. It's so sick. But anyways, Jeremy and I get out there, and it had been blowing wind, like super hard wind with fresh snow, and we could see little crowns like high up on some of the lines nearby. And dang it, crap! Like we came all the way out here, and it's hard. Like you're balancing those different like human factors of like, let's do what we set out to do. But both of us luckily we're great partners in the backcountry in the sense that we're like, all right, if one of us has a bad feeling, like then we're both out.
Yeah.
So we were analyzing, like we talked about all the different like issues, like the new snow, the wind, the crowns, like the signs of snow failing on other aspects. Or similar aspects, different faces. And so we're like, all right, let's get a closer look, dig a few hand pits, go a little bit farther. And then we're hiking up, and I was like, I don't feel good. Doesn't feel right. And immediately Jeremy's like, all right, let's go. And so we just went around and we went, and then we skied sick corn, like some of the best corn skiing I've ever done. But it was definitely hard, where both of us were like, we really wanted to do that line. Like that was so hard to turn around, but it's not going anywhere. No one's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't know. The snow might not be there forever.
Yep.
Things are going.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, one of the things that TJ David and I talked about, he got into mountaineering and long distance running, and he was talking about longevity in the sport, and really like at the end of the day, the best make the best decisions consistently, right? And so being able to silence that ego and really truly live into this idea of we have intuition, and when we can silence our mind and when we can listen to our heart and listen to our gut, I think it often gives us these really clear-cut answers. And like it's even though our brain doesn't want us to do things, like when I tore my ACL, I had this gut instinct, like my gut just flared up with adrenaline right before I was hitting this down flat down rail. I was doing a 270 onto a down flat down rail. It's not that crazy of a situation.
No,
but
I can't do those. That's crazy to me.
But I like had this gut instinct that was like, don't hit it. And I ignored it. And then 2 seconds later, the like 1 in a million chance, and that's a video that I'll send you. My ski got caught in between the plywood and the metal support for the rail. It was literally like just enough space for my ski tail to go through, and it got caught in, and then my body got dragged over it. And there's a picture of me with my knee all the way up here, like next to and luckily, I like do yoga and I am flexible, and I do, go with the flow when I fall. And so I didn't break anything, but I tore my ACL. And if I would have just listened to that, that instinct and skied around that rail, I was filming, I was filming, and I was like, oh, it's a beautiful day, whatever. I should have just listened to that instinct. If I would have listened to the instinct, I wouldn't have had to deal with that. And at the same time, now I have more experience to, more fuel to tell people about that. And now I have more reason to trust my instinct and trust my gut and to go with this it may not rationally make sense, but if my gut says no on something, I don't do it, And if my gut says yes, then I do it. And it may not be the most rational thing that way either. Yeah, trusting your intuition. It's really hard because a lot of times it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense,
it's not what you think you want either.
Exactly.
In respect, it's normally right.
Yes, totally. 100%.
Hey, just one more thing before you go. I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you really enjoyed it. A couple things that I would ask that you do if you enjoyed today's episode. Number one, go follow us on Instagram at The Athletic Stance Podcast. Number two, if you don't mind leaving a review, rating it, and subscribing, it always helps. It helps spread the word. It helps me know what you guys are enjoying or not. And if you don't mind leaving a comment on Instagram, letting me know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, I will always take into consideration. And feel free to send me a message with recommendations on who you'd like to hear from, what you'd like to hear us talk about. And as always, thank you so much for listening, for your time, and we'll see you next time at the Athletic Stance Podcast.